How are you guys doing? It's Wednesday. I guess we are ready to rock and roll, aren't we, Morgan?
Yep, we are now live on YouTube, so we're good to go.
Well, guys, I'm glad you're here with me today. I want to ask you just a quick question, and before I go into my presentation, what if I was to tell everybody on here today, send me anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000, and I'm going to invest it into one of our fundings. And within 6 months to 12 months, you're going to get about 30 or 40% on that money. Would you do it? But what if I told you there's a couple caveats here that you need to know? We're going to give the person who asked for the money any amount that they want. We're going to give it to them without looking at any of their credit. We don't care if they defaulted or not. We're going to give them the money. And it doesn't matter if they're over leveraged. We're going to give them the money. Doesn't matter if they're negative in their bank account. We're going to give them the money. So who wants to be the first one to step up and send me between $1,000 and $10,000? But listen, guys, you can get 40% on your money anywhere from 6 months to 12 months from now. So would you do that? Well, I would not have my hand raised, but that's what I'm being asked to do over and over and over again. I know it's frustrating when you actually have to go through a file. Frustrating for you when your file comes in and there's some issues on the file. But remember, especially if you're online and you find these people, you don't know anything about them, and if they're friends of yours, they're not going to tell you if they're in really bad financial shape. So today, I'm going to talk about common sense isn't common, and I want to talk about that to you just for a few minutes, and tell you first of all that we're really doing well with the funding. Whether you have had funding this week or not, I'm telling you, it's still there. A lot of people are coming. The economy is really bringing more and more files, and they're getting better and better and better. I got a lady right now that I was rushing to get on this and talking to her. She got approved for over $100,000 on an on-deck deal, which is some of our best rates. And she only wants 20, so she's incredibly pleased with it. But I also had three other, two of them in the healthcare, and one is in construction. And I got them 18 months at a 134 and a 137 and a 145 over 18 months. And when you do your math, that's anywhere from 15 to 16% annual on the money. And they screamed at me and said it was ridiculous. Who's going to pay that kind of rate? And it just blows my mind, because at the bank, they can't get the money because I ask them all. So I just wanted to start this out with just asking you, would you put your money up? I mean, I wouldn't put my money up. I have put my money into a lot of these, but I want to know a little bit more information before I do that. So I wanted that point to kind of settle in, because today we're going to be talking about common sense isn't common, and tempering the expectations of some of your clients. Our lender partners, and I've gone over this with you before, are the ones who establish and determine the risk of a file because they got their money in it, not Bank Breezy. We do put some of our money in some of them every once in a while, but we are not the ones that are putting the money up at risk. And sometimes they're going to fund up to 200% on that file. Sometimes they're only going to fund about 50%, especially if they're in the trucking industry, because we all know that in the trucking industry, we got 3 or 4 different lenders that almost went under because they had between 50 and 63% of all their deals that they accepted on the trucking that went bad, and they took a lot of them. But a lot of these risk factors out there include, but they're not limited to, current MCA deals that are in place. So if people are stacking and stacking and stacking, and that's what's happening right now. A lot of I shouldn't say a lot, not a lot of our brokers, but a lot of brokers out there are going with an ISO like us and getting the deal funded, and then going to two other places and using, and I can't mention their names because I don't want to get sued, but a couple of lenders that you really shouldn't be using, and they'll stack and double stack, and all of a sudden they're stacked so high that the client can't even pay for the daggum funding. And when the lender calls them, they say, "Oh yeah, that was Bank Breezy. They're the ones that gave it to me." Well, it wasn't Bank Breezy. It was the agent or broker that was in charge there. We're going to have to look at those MCA deals in place. You got to look at any kind of past payment performance to determine what the future probability is that they're going to make the payment. And if you're putting your $10,000 into one of these deals, you would want to know that, I'm sure. We're going to look at the number of deposits. That's a real key too. We got some files this week that really look good. If they were A files, we'd be able to do something with them, but they're really more C and D files, and they only got one or two deposits. No lender in their right mind is going to lend on that, because one of those deals, whoever that deposit is from, may not be here next month, and then that lender's in big trouble because they can't make payments forget about us, they can't even make their payroll. Business type means a whole lot, and when they change business accounts in the middle of the stream, if you apply and you just change the business account, 9 times out of 10 you're doing that to avoid something, and that's hard for brokers to understand. Sometimes we always look at the Secretary of State. We want to know who really owns this business, because that's important. Because I was on a call with a lender yesterday, just going over some of the great things they're getting ready to do for us, and actually already have, where 12-month deals are going to be running rampant with lots of prepayment discounts like crazy. And they were talking and saying, you know, we really need to know who really owns the business, because if they default and we sue them for the money, which, you know, it's got to be a decent amount for them to do that. But when they do that, and the person really didn't own the business, but they just worked there, or they were a manager, then there's no legal right for them to have to pay that money. And of course, background checks are another thing. I want to tell you something. It is absolutely a fact, whether you believe it or not, that if the clients answer the pre-qualification questions correct and their background is clean, then we're going to get 80% of the time, we're going to give them an offer. It may not be what they want, but some of those offers can be killed because of the bank verification part of this. And I'm going to get to that in a moment. But what I want you to do is just, you know, don't promise or guarantee anything to folks out there. Understand we're not interest-based. It just floors me to get a 1.34 rate over 18 months, and you divide 34 by 18 if you got a calculator, and then multiply that by 12, and that tells you what they're paying for the money on an annual basis. And if that is not something that's going to make sense to them, then honestly, common sense tells you that client probably shouldn't be submitting to us. They're doing it with misinformation, thinking that possibly they're going to get below what the banks are even doing out there, and the banks are doing pretty much nothing right now. So if there are any kind of criminal filings against them on the background, or they're, you know, personally or business wise, that's going to affect everything. And when we're looking at some misdemeanor charges that they may have, like writing bad checks, that's part of a financial crime. Those are the kind of things that really hurt them. But I'm getting more and more where they may have been young and they had these problems. I'm able to overcome all that, unless it's murder, harm to a child, or spousal abuse. And by the way, if they're are behind on child support, it's just the lenders we're using, and most of them in this industry, except for a handful, just will not. It's just a moral thing for them, and they want the person to catch that up before they'll even set it up. But another reason is a legal reason, because when they get money, it can be taken from the government, come in and snatch that money out if you're behind on it. And if they've done personal or business bankruptcy in the last 7 years, just had one that did it 2 years ago. That was a great looking file, but I don't have anybody that's going to be able to go in there and fund them because of that. There's just a lot of different things that we have to look at when we're making decisions about underwriting. The bank verification issue is probably the number one reason that files get declined. We accept the funding, they signed everything, they've done all that they think they're supposed to do. But what they didn't tell us is that they took a funding during this current month. It doesn't happen like in December right now. None of this is really going to happen because it's only the 6th of December. When it becomes the 15th through the 31st of December, then they're going to be 30, whatever. They're going to be, that's when the issues are going to start because they have taken funding. They haven't told us. We don't have the bank account in front of us for December yet. And then, but the bank verification link is going to open up the whole month to date. So we can see that they, number one, took money. Number two, that, and by the way, if they do, they're going to have to wait another 30 to 45 days to reapply because we did the underwriting based on the amount of funding that they have outstanding, maybe a first position or no position. And then all of a sudden ours become a second or third position. That changes everything on the file. If they lower their payments, for example, let's say they got an on deck deal and they're paying $1,200 a week and they dropped it to $500 a week, and they're trying now to get with us and get another $20,000, $40,000. They're not going to give it to them because they can't even afford the on deck deal. So, and they find that out through the bank verification link. Or if they have more than 5 negative days. I had a really good one again this morning that we had to decline, or the underwriters did, because they've got every day in the month of December is negative so far. They got to catch it up, get positive, and into the month we'll look at it again. But I can tell you one thing: past defaults are a big problem. I'm trying to overcome one that defaulted. They had a really good reason. Most of the time, lenders don't care about the reason, but I got a good relationship with this particular lender, and they're going to give them a 2 or 3 month deal to try it out, make sure they do well on it, and then if they can prove themselves, then they can get back in the system and start having different fundings from that point on. There's a lot of state financial disclosures that are going on out there, guys. There's some of the things that we might have to have from the client, they don't want to give us, like proof of ownership and some stuff like that. And these disclosures, you have to sign these disclosures, and you got to know what you're doing as a broker. So that's why we actually let us handle everything. There's a lot of states that have them. Georgia and Florida are going to become law. Actually January the 1st is not accurate for these states. It's sometime in 2024, but before June, and they'll come into play too, where you're just not going to be able to have all these brokers going out there and trying to stack people and giving them misinformation. So I will end it with this: common sense isn't common, it seems like, anymore. I received these email comments from some of our agents this week, and the first one said, "You say you want to help small businesses, but decline my client because he defaulted 5 years ago on an expensive daily payment program. What's wrong with you?" Well, there's nothing wrong with me. The problem is defaults are not curable in almost 99.9% of the cases. Number two, it says, "I don't understand why the company is offering these kinds of deals that my client doesn't want. The client is looking for a lock of 50 to 100,000. Can you please work in that direction?" Well, the client's monthly revenue was $14,000 average, and we had him a $22,000 offer. They never said they wanted a lock on the submission, or we would have killed it up front, because you can't have a $14,000 average and get a lock. Plus, the credit on this is nowhere near above a 625. So these are just some of the things that incur. And guys, I'm gonna stop sharing now. I just want to tell you that I love you guys. I love working with you. You give me so much pleasure working with the DAC folks and working with particularly folks that I have a great rapport with. But understand, blasting our team, I mean, it makes no sense. Just get a little bit more educated and understand what I told you at the beginning. What if you were putting $10,000 of your own money into this, knowing that you can make 30 or 40% on your money, but we're not going to do any of these checks or anything. I wouldn't even let you do it. If you said, yeah, I'll take that chance, I wouldn't let you do it because you'd be lucky to get a 70% default rate. It's probably going to be closer to 80 or 90% default rate on these. We have a fiduciary responsibility to our lender partners to inform them when we find out information about clients. I do that. I've got offers right now that I'm not going to make in the state of California because of in any of these disclosure states, because I know that this lender that made the offer has not done the background check, because I got 7 other lenders that said it was a default. And so all I'm going to do is make people mad by making an offer I know that's impossible to go through. So we're using some common sense when we do things as well. Thanks, guys, and I'm gonna take some questions now. But I'm telling you that we're totally excited about what's happening here. And David, last night I heard him talk about recruiting with the RX card, and it's happening. More files are coming in because people come in with the RX and they start using their warm market, and you're going to see that happening. So go ahead to the first question, Morgan, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. First up, we've got Pamela W. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Wade.
Hey, friend.
About the defaults, and I had a question about that. What is the look back period on that? Is it like if they default, it's forever, or is there a certain time period? Because I've had some clients that have had those in the past. It's been quite a while, and they've been declined, and they, of course, they don't understand why. But is there a certain time period, or is it if they default once, then that's pretty much over?
Well, it's about a 10-year period or more, but
Okay.
It's on the system. But if it's past 7 years, I'm going to be able to work through that with certain lenders. Some lenders, it doesn't matter. They said, no, once you do it, you're bad, and we're never going to give you a chance. But more and more lenders are now looking at, hey, this situation happened. They've got a steady 5 years of doing good and not having a bunch of legal issues anymore. But these defaults, usually when they default, they don't default on one person, one lender, they default on multiple ones, Pam. So those lenders keep reporting.
Okay.
But again, if it's over 5 years, I might be able to work with it, but certainly if it's over 7, I can. But there's just a fine line on who would even be. And by the way, most of the lenders that are out there in the marketplace that will take defaults, you don't want to do business with them, because they will literally take your bank account from you if you mess up one payment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next question, we have Paul F. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Wade.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
I can.
First of all, I thank you for this wealth of information. Your training is invaluable, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
My question is, and it's a short one, do we fund churches? And if so, how does that work?
We will fund nonprofit churches almost never. The only way a church can get funded, they got to be doing a lot of revenue. I mean, a lot. And they got to have 50% of that revenue coming from something besides donations, like a church store, maybe a home for kids and all that they're getting revenue from. But you're not going to get churches funded pretty much anywhere, and they used to, Paul, but it doesn't look good. Churches do default a lot, and it doesn't look good when you're out there trying to collect against a church. It's just not good optics, and lenders don't want to be part of that.
I see. I appreciate that, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we've got Matt Duhame and then Christopher Sanchez. Matt, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Okay, Wade, here we go. So how many situations I've had with last second, declines, right? Or something happens. I mean, just it's part of the game. It's part of the reality with this. And I just want to share with the group. It's not a question, it's just a statement that you're doing everything you can. And everybody who sends in an application, you got to understand. I mean, it's in Wade's best interest to get it done. He's going to do everything possible. But I understand the frustration. Like nobody, I mean, maybe I don't know anybody else has as many issues that have blown up, deals that have blown up on them. But I'm just sharing this with you, Wade. You know it. You got to be persistent and just let those folks that complain, the agents, they're just immature. They don't get it. They don't want to. They don't want to know. They're entitled. They feel like they're entitled to something. And the problem is, I think it's not plugging into these calls and not seeing what you're sharing here. I said in one of those interviews that David did with me, I said, you got to put yourself in the position of the lender. And you started off today with the same thing. Would you do it? Would you give that money? Would you risk it personally? And if you're not willing to do that, well, you got to understand they're not either. And you can't tell. And so I just want to share this with the guys, everybody on this call. You don't know. I mean, the background check, these last second things before they send the money are necessary. So just deal with it. I mean, just get more fun. Just talk to more people. Overcome it by just staying positive. I understand. This is really, really, really what I want to share because I get dejected myself. I got upset in the first, year, I think, when I started this 5 years ago, right? Like, oh my gosh, what? Why can't we get this done? I get it. I get it. So you try to empathize. I'm just sharing, not to say that you stop, don't screen your clients to the point where they start getting skeptical of even wanting to submit an application. Go ahead and submit the application if you've qualified them for their needs for the funds and their if you want to talk to them about their revenue, they're gonna either get funded or not. So it's out of your control. As David said in the call last night, you're responsible for reaching out, but you're not responsible for the outcome. So that's all. I want to throw that out.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. And
you got it.
And the majority of the agents understand it's really an ignorance of what's going on, and that's not a critical ignorance. It just means you don't have the information that you need. And if you can get that information and have that knowledge, then it's not going to be a big slap in the face for you. But again, we're not a bank, and we're doing everything a bank won't do to get things funded.
Yep.
Thank you, man.
You bet.
All right. Next up, we've got Christopher Sanchez. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, Wade. Always a pleasure to hear what you have to share. Very, very exciting. My question is, I was speaking with an accountant, and he wanted to know if you knew offhand if him becoming a DAC agent would be a conflict of interest in the regards to.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. He just wanted to know if there was any legality that would come up for him being a DAC agent.
Not at all. And well, I don't know what exactly he's asking, but think about this. Most of the people that like my accountant, she's doing ERCs. My accountant, I mean, she's sending them to some place to do ERCs and wouldn't switch with me because she said it's coming to an end in her mind, blah, blah, blah. And she's also got a securities license, which means she's able to sell different stocks, bonds, annuities, those kind of things. She can do, I mean, not stocks and bonds, but annuities, insurance products, that sort of thing. So she does all of that. I think that it's pretty smart for you to find a CPA, and it's pretty smart for them to find other revenue streams that are coming in and actually help their clients in the meantime. So I think I applaud any CPA that wants to get involved. And listen, if they get trained properly, they could be some of the greatest brokers that we have. Well, I don't see any other hands, and I just want to tell you guys, I really appreciate everything, and I know that this RX is really going to go crazy nationally. Just remember, when that happens, these new people, that's new blood in the system. They're going to hear about funding, and you're going to get more and more applications coming through the system. So that's all I got. Thank you for today, and God bless you, and y'all have a great weekend.